Without these nations, the US would collapse. Predictions for 2025. What if the very nations holding up the United States like unseen pillars were suddenly gone? Imagine a future, not far from now, where key global partnerships begin to crumble. As 2025 approaches, new tensions rise, alliances shift, and the quiet support systems America relies on start to fade. Without these countries, from critical trade routes to defense backbones, the US may face a collapse, not of land or people, but of influence, stability, and economic power. Which nations are these? And what happens if they falter? Welcome to the journey of wisdom. Today, we'll uncover the hidden foundations of America's strength and explore why losing them could trigger a chain reaction the world isn't ready for. Number 1. The United Kingdom. Many believe the United States stands entirely on its own, a self-sustaining superpower untouched by global tides. But in reality, its strength is more interconnected than we often acknowledge. Among its most enduring and influential partners is the United Kingdom. More than just a historic ally, the UK is closely intertwined with the United States across economic, military, and geopolitical dimensions. Their relationship isn't merely ceremonial, it's highly functional and mutually beneficial. With more than $260 billion in annual trade, this partnership influences everything from transatlantic flight routes to long-term investment portfolios. British companies such as BP and Rolls-Royce are significant contributors to US industries. Their roles extend beyond business. They are embedded in the systems that help drive everyday life in America. In this sense, the alliance functions like a crucial component in a well-oiled machine. Each part reinforces the other. To imagine a world without this partnership is to consider a system with a key gear removed. Not broken perhaps, but certainly under strain. As the Buddha once said, just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not affected by praise or blame. Yet even the strongest rock is shaped by the waters around it. In today's world, no nation is truly an island. On the military front, the collaboration between the US and UK is both deep and strategic. Through frameworks like the Five Eyes Alliance, they share intelligence that supports national security and global stability. These efforts are built on decades of trust, and while sensitive details are closely guarded, public sources suggest that this alliance plays a role in preventing threats and shaping coordinated responses. Cooperation in nuclear policy and international missions underscores a shared commitment to collective security. While no alliance is perfect or without challenge, the current partnership significantly enhances both nations' ability to navigate complex global issues. In the realm of finance, London holds global weight. As one of the world's leading financial hubs, London's relationship with Wall Street creates a transatlantic economic bridge. This connection contributes to market liquidity, risk distribution, and overall financial resilience. Experts note that economic shifts in London can send ripple effects through international markets, influencing everything from mortgage rates to oil prices in the US. As Thich Nhat Hanh observed, we are here to awaken from the illusion of our separateness. While not political in origin, the idea holds relevance. We live in an intricately connected world where actions in one corner can swiftly affect outcomes in another. So what would it mean for the US to lose the UK as a partner? While such a scenario is speculative, analysts suggest it could lead to a weakening of several systems, not just in terms of economics or defense, but in the broader sense of diplomatic and operational synergy. In an era where the local is shaped by the global and national strength depends on international cooperation, it's important to recognize the value of our closest alliances. True resilience comes not from isolation, but from meaningful interdependence. For individuals navigating today's uncertain world, this perspective offers a reminder. Strong relationships, whether between nations or people, are a foundation for stability. Acknowledging the threads that connect us isn't a sign of weakness, but a reflection of wisdom in a connected age. Number 2. India. Let's take a moment to ask a question you may not have considered. What would happen to the United States if India, one of its most quietly powerful partners, suddenly stepped back? At first glance, this might seem like a hypothetical scenario, but when you begin to uncover just how interconnected these two nations are, the impact becomes startling. It's not just about trade or business. It's about the lifeblood of entire industries, from technology to healthcare, and even America's position in the global balance of power. So take a breath and let's explore this together. Have you ever called tech support and found yourself speaking with someone in Bangalore or Hyderabad? Or maybe you've used an app developed by a team overseas, or filled a prescription at your local pharmacy without knowing where it came from. There's a very high chance India had a hand in making all of that possible. India isn't just a helpful partner, it's one of the engines that keep the US economy running. With a $150 billion IT sector, India fuels some of the most critical functions of the American tech industry. Companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon don't just collaborate with Indian talent, they depend on it. From software engineering to cybersecurity, from customer service to AI development, Indian professionals form the backbone of countless operations. If that support disappeared, how long do you think Silicon Valley could keep up its pace? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. India also plays a vital role in one of the most sensitive and life-saving areas, healthcare. Did you know that around 40% of generic medicines in the United States come from India? Imagine what that means for hospitals, pharmacies, and patients, especially those who depend on affordable medications. If India were no longer supplying these drugs, the ripple effects would be enormous. Prices would rise, supply chains would be disrupted, lives could be put at risk. And behind these numbers are real people, families, children, seniors, all depending on a system built on international trust. And there's more. The trade relationship between the US and India isn't just about tech and medicine, it's expansive. In 2023, the two countries exchanged over $190 billion in goods and services, from textiles and machinery to agricultural products and energy solutions. India provides essential inputs that keep American industries moving. This partnership goes beyond dollars. It's also deeply strategic. In a world where geopolitical tensions are rising, particularly in Asia, India stands as a critical ally to the US in counterbalancing the growing influence of China. So ask yourself, if this partnership weakens, who fills that vacuum? What would it mean for America's presence in the region? The fallout wouldn't just be economic. It would be technological, medical, and even geopolitical. A slowdown in innovation, a healthcare system under pressure, a shift in global influence. The US and India, the world's two largest democracies, have created something powerful through cooperation, something that goes beyond numbers and into the realm of mutual growth and resilience. Could the US truly maintain its global strength without India's contributions? So, what does this teach us? First, that no great nation thrives alone. Interdependence, when rooted in mutual respect and shared values, becomes a source of strength. Second, it reminds us to appreciate the invisible threads that hold our daily lives together. The voices we hear on the other end of the phone, the software we use, the medicine we take. And finally, it challenges us to think not just about what a country gets from a relationship, but what it builds with it. In a world that often pulls us toward division, perhaps the real power lies in choosing connection. Number 3, South Korea. Let us take a moment to truly appreciate how deeply interconnected our world has become, and in doing so, recognize the profound role that South Korea plays in the stability and prosperity of the United States. When we talk about nations that help uphold the weight of global systems, South Korea often flies under the radar. Yet quietly, persistently, it has become one of America's most crucial lifelines, not only economically, but technologically and militarily. The famous Zen saying goes, "When the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind." And in many ways, South Korea has become one of those roots in the vast forest of global stability, especially for the US. If you take a step back and look around your home, your smartphone, your smart TV, your laptop, even the very car you drive, there's a strong chance a part of it was designed, developed, or refined in South Korea. At the core of this digital age lies the semiconductor, the small but mighty chip that makes everything from communication to national defense possible. Without exaggeration, South Korea is the beating heart of global semiconductor production, with industry titans like Samsung and SK Hynix leading the charge. These chips don't just sit in consumer gadgets. They're vital components in medical equipment, space technology, AI systems, and military defense tools. Now imagine, just for a second, the supply line for these components being cut, not by a strike or a delay, but by a geopolitical shift or a regional crisis. The impact wouldn't just be economic, it would be existential for industries that power daily American life. As the Buddha once taught, everything is connected. The falling of one leaf can shake the root of a tree. In this case, the disruption of one nation could shake the core of an empire. And technology is only part of the story. South Korea's contributions stretch deep into trade and industry. The United States imports over $100 billion, 0 cents, in goods from South Korea every year. This isn't trivial cargo. It includes automobiles from Hyundai and Kia that are staples on American roads, steel that forms the backbone of construction projects across states, and high-end electronics that define our modern lifestyle. If by chance or conflict those goods stopped arriving, the consequences would be immediate and widespread. Prices would surge, availability would plummet, and domestic industries would scramble to recover from the sudden loss of a trusted supplier. This is a classic example of the wisdom: when the well is dry, we learn the worth of water. Yet beyond economics and commerce lies the matter of peace and security, a matter that cannot be measured in dollars or devices. The United States stations nearly 30,000 troops in South Korea, not as a show of power, but as a shield of balance in a region shadowed by uncertainty. The strategic alliance between the two nations serves as a deterrent not just against North Korea's provocations, but also as a stabilizing force in the broader Indo-Pacific theater. Were this alliance to fracture, it wouldn't simply weaken one partnership, it would leave an opening for power imbalances, territorial tensions, and possibly even conflict that could ripple across continents. The presence of the US in South Korea isn't just military. It's symbolic of a trust built over decades. In Buddhist thought, trust is seen as one of the pillars of right relationship, and without it, even the most fortified castles crumble. Without inner peace, outer peace is impossible, said the Dalai Lama. And in geopolitics, peace among nations begins with mutual understanding and interdependence. So, as we look ahead to the uncertain horizon of 2025, we must remember this. Without South Korea, the United States would lose more than just a trading partner. It would lose a keystone in its foundation of innovation, defense, and global influence. In modern life, where so much feels fragile and fleeting, it's essential to recognize what truly sustains us. Whether in our personal lives or the fate of nations, harmony relies not on dominance, but on cooperation. Let this remind us that no country, no person, no system thrives in isolation. Thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened, the Buddha said. South Korea, in many ways, has been one of those candles, quietly lighting the way for progress, peace, and partnership. And the real question for us, as citizens of a shared world, is, are we doing our part to keep that light burning? You're not just watching. You're waking up to the truth behind global power dynamics. If you're ready to see through the noise and get to the core of what's really driving America's future, drop a truth seeker in the comments. Keep watching. What you're about to learn might just shift how you see the world in 2025 and beyond. Number 4. Taiwan. Let's pause for a moment and ask something that might catch you off guard. How much do you really know about Taiwan's role in your daily life? That tiny island thousands of miles away may not make headlines in your morning newsfeed every day, but believe it or not, your phone, your laptop, your car, and even the military defense systems that protect your country could all come to a grinding halt without it. Taiwan isn't just important, it's essential. And if the US were to lose its partnership with Taiwan, the consequences could be far more devastating than most people realize. Think about this. Taiwan is the heart of the world's semiconductor industry. Companies like TSMC, which you may not even have heard of, are silently powering the digital world behind the scenes. They're responsible for nearly 60% of the planet's microchip supply, and over 90% of the most advanced chips used in artificial intelligence, cutting-edge smartphones, and high-performance computing. So here's the question I want to ask you. If this delicate supply chain were broken, how long do you think our modern lifestyle could keep functioning? Would you still be able to call loved ones, stream your favorite show, or even buy a car? These aren't just hypotheticals. They're real possibilities that highlight how deeply our lives are intertwined with a single place that rarely gets the spotlight it deserves. But it goes even deeper than technology. Taiwan is also a significant trading partner of the US, exporting around $70 billion worth of goods every year. These are not luxury items. Many are essential components that American companies rely on to manufacture, assemble, and distribute the tools and machines we use every single day. If that trade stopped, the shock to the economy wouldn't just be noticeable, it would be jarring, like losing a major artery in the body's circulation system. Jobs would be affected, prices would rise, businesses could stall. The impact wouldn't just be on Wall Street. It would be in your neighborhood, in your city, in your home. But as crucial as that is, there's an even more fragile element in this entire picture: geopolitics. Taiwan isn't just a key economic player, it's also located in one of the tensest regions in the world. China has made no secret of its desire to bring Taiwan under its control, And with rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific, we're looking at the possibility, some say the inevitability, of a future conflict that could draw the US directly into confrontation. I know that's not an easy thing to think about, but isn't it worth asking ourselves, what happens to global peace, to technological leadership, to economic security, if Taiwan becomes a battleground? This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. If Taiwan were no longer a US ally, the fallout wouldn't be limited to just one region or one industry. The ripple effects would touch every aspect of American life. The tech industry would stumble, military readiness would be weakened, and global markets would be thrown into chaos. It's a powerful reminder that in our highly connected world, even a small shift in a distant place can echo across oceans and borders in ways we never imagined. So what should we take away from this? First, that we must never underestimate the value of partnership and peace. Second, that the foundations of modern life are more fragile than they appear. And finally, that when we talk about building a strong future, it's not just about what we can do alone, it's about what we nurture together. What do you think America should do to protect a relationship this critical? Number 5. Saudi Arabia. Let's take a moment to explore a relationship that's far more important to the United States than most people realize. Saudi Arabia. You might not think about it often, but the connection between the US and Saudi Arabia is deeply woven into the fabric of America's economy, energy security, and even national defense. Think about this. What would really happen if, overnight, the US lost access to one of the world's largest and most influential oil supplies? It's not just about prices at the gas station going up. It's about transportation systems slowing down, manufacturing grinding to a halt, and economic tremors that could shake the foundations of everyday life in America. That's how deeply tied the US is to Saudi oil. Every year, millions of barrels flow from the kingdom into the American economy, keeping cars moving, planes flying, and industries running. But oil is only the beginning. Saudi Arabia plays a crucial role in OPEC, the powerful oil-producing coalition that has the ability to influence global oil prices with a single decision. If Saudi Arabia ever decided to distance itself from the US or shift its allegiance, the impact would ripple far beyond just barrels and prices. It could upend the stability of the entire US economy. But let's go deeper. Did you know that this partnership is also a cornerstone of global security? Saudi Arabia and the US share intelligence, conduct counterterrorism operations together, and coordinate military strategy in one of the most volatile regions on Earth, the Middle East. If that relationship were to break, American interests could be exposed to new threats overnight. The balance of power in the region would shift, and the US would lose a key strategic ally in maintaining peace and responding to emerging conflicts. Now, beyond oil and military ties, there's a growing connection through innovation and investment. Saudi Arabia has been working hard to reduce its dependence on oil by diversifying its economy. And guess who's playing a big part in that transformation? That's right, US companies. From advanced weapon systems to cutting-edge technology, American firms are partnering with the kingdom on projects worth billions. These ventures not only boost the US economy, but also create mutual dependencies that strengthen ties. So, the next time someone says the US could simply move on from Saudi Arabia, ask them, what happens to global energy prices, international security, and the jobs linked to those billion-dollar partnerships? Can we afford that kind of instability? It's not just about whether the US needs Saudi Arabia, It's about how much we all depend on the delicate balance this relationship brings. In a world that's growing more complex by the day, the partnerships we often take for granted are sometimes the very ones holding everything together. So here's the takeaway. Global power isn't always about force. It's about connection. The US-Saudi relationship is a vivid reminder that no nation, no matter how powerful, thrives in isolation. Ask yourself this: what other global ties are keeping things in balance for the US, and what would happen if even one of them were to fall apart? Keep reflecting, keep questioning, and as we explore more countries that quietly hold America's future in their hands, stay curious, because understanding the world isn't just about knowing facts, it's about seeing the deeper threads that bind nations together. Number 6. Germany. Let's pause for a moment and look deeper into a relationship that many people underestimate but is absolutely vital to the strength and stability of the United States. Germany. Have you ever asked yourself what would really happen if one of the world's most innovative, disciplined and powerful economies suddenly stopped working with the US? It's easy to overlook just how connected we are. But if Germany, a nation often referred to as the economic engine of Europe, were to pull away, the ripple effects would be felt in nearly every corner of American life. Germany isn't just another trade partner. It's the fourth largest economy on Earth, and every year over $130 billion worth of German goods flows into the US economy. That's not just numbers on paper. That's machinery powering our factories, technology driving our innovation, and vehicles on our roads. Ask yourself, what would it mean for your everyday life if the cost of goods suddenly spiked, if production slowed, or if the technologies you rely on fell behind? These aren't far-off hypotheticals. They're real possibilities if this alliance were to unravel. Take the American auto industry, for example. It's closely tied to German manufacturers like BMW, Mercedes, BNZ, and Volkswagen. But it's not just about selling cars. Many of these companies assemble vehicles in the US, creating jobs and boosting local economies. What's more, some of the most advanced automotive technologies, like fuel-efficient engines and cutting-edge safety systems, are developed in Germany and then integrated into American vehicles. Without that innovation pipeline, US car makers would be stuck trying to catch up in a race they can't afford to lose. And that's just the beginning. Germany leads the world in industrial machinery, pharmaceuticals, and specialized chemicals. These aren't luxuries. They're essential ingredients in American agriculture, aerospace, and even your local hospital. Without German inputs, everything from growing food to producing life-saving medicine becomes harder and more expensive. So again, I ask you, how many of the things we take for granted would become uncertain if that supply chain were cut? But the importance of Germany doesn't stop at the factory gates. Germany is also a cornerstone of global peace and security. As a founding member of NATO and the most influential country in Europe, it stands shoulder to shoulder with the US in maintaining peace, especially in an increasingly unstable world. Losing Germany's support would not only weaken America's position in Europe, it could shift the balance of power entirely, creating space for adversaries to rise and alliances to falter. As the Buddha once said, just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not affected by praise or blame. This teaches us the importance of balance, stability, and steady partnership in a world full of uncertainty. That's exactly what Germany represents, a rock of reliability in America's global strategy. Personally, I believe that the strength of a nation lies not just in its weapons or wealth, but in the wisdom to value its allies. So here's a question for you. In a time where nations are becoming more self-focused, are we forgetting how interconnected we truly are? Are we taking for granted the partnerships that uphold the very life we live every day? If we're wise, we'll recognize that Germany isn't just a partner, it's a pillar that supports America's economy, its security, and its future. So, as you move forward, remember, behind every car you drive, every machine that makes your life easier, and every international peace agreement that keeps conflict at bay, there's a web of relationships holding it all together. Germany is one of those threads, and without it, that web could unravel far faster than we think. Still with us? That means you're part of the few who dare to ask, what if the US can't stand alone? Comment eyes open if you're ready to explore the global connections that keep superpowers alive. Stay tuned. What's coming next will give you a whole new perspective on the year ahead. Number 7. Japan. Let's take a closer look at a nation whose influence on the United States runs far deeper than most people realize. Japan. When you think about the devices you use every single day, from your smartphone and laptop to your car's smart system or even medical technology in hospitals, it might not cross your mind that Japan plays a vital role in making all of those things work. But it's true. Japan, the world's third largest economy, is one of America's most important partners, especially in the realm of technology. With over $200 billion in goods traded between the two nations every year, Japan supplies a huge portion of the critical components that American industries rely on to function. And I don't just mean luxury gadgets. I'm talking about the heart of modern life. Without Japan, we would be staring down a serious tech crisis. Japan leads the world in semiconductor innovation, a technology so essential it sits at the core of everything from the phone in your hand to the military systems protecting national security. If the flow of semiconductors were cut, the US would struggle to build, innovate, or even maintain its current level of technological progress. Your devices would cost more, innovation would stall, and businesses would lose their edge in the global market. And it doesn't stop there. Japan is home to some of the most respected and advanced automakers in the world, Toyota, Honda, and Nissan, just to name a few. These aren't just car companies. They are innovation hubs, pioneering technology that is later adopted by American manufacturers. From fuel efficiency to self-driving systems, these advances help shape the US automotive landscape. If that relationship were to crumble, the American auto industry would face a serious setback. Car prices would rise, jobs would be lost, and American consumers would pay the price in more ways than one. But Japan's importance isn't just economic, it's strategic. In a world where global tensions can shift overnight, the US-Japan alliance stands as a pillar of peace and balance in the Indo-Pacific region. Together, they work to protect critical sea routes, monitor regional threats, and deter aggression, especially from rising powers like China. The US has multiple military bases in Japan, and this cooperation ensures that peace is not just hoped for, it's actively maintained. Without Japan's support, the US would lose a vital strategic position in one of the most contested areas of the world. Think about that. If Japan, with all its technological might and strategic influence, were to sever ties with the United States, what would it mean not just for international politics, but for your daily life? For your job, your family's access to affordable tech, your car, your health care, and even your national security. the domino effect would be massive. As the old Zen proverb says, when the root is deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. That root, in this case, is a stable, mutually respectful relationship between Japan and the United States. Something we should nurture, not take for granted. So as you reflect on the deeper ties that hold the modern world together, ask yourself, in a time of growing global uncertainty, are we valuing the relationships that make our way of life possible? Partnerships like the one with Japan are not just political, they're personal. They shape the world we wake up to each day. Let that be a reminder to look beyond the headlines, to stay curious, and to understand that in this interconnected world, the fall of one trusted nation doesn't just affect borders, it affects lives. Number 8. Mexico. Let's take a moment to think about a country that quietly holds up a major part of American life. Mexico. You might not hear about it in dramatic headlines every day, but if the partnership between the United States and Mexico were to fall apart, the effects would be felt in your home, your wallet, and your safety. Mexico is the US's third largest trading partner, with more than $600 billion in goods moving between the two nations every year. That's not a small deal. That's a lifeline. From cars to computers, from wires to washing machines, Mexico plays a key role in the supply chains that keep American industries running smoothly. Without that connection, production costs would skyrocket, businesses would slow down, and you, yes you, would be paying higher prices for everyday goods. And it goes even deeper. Mexico is the single largest supplier of agricultural products to the US, especially fresh fruits and vegetables that fill our supermarkets and kitchens. Think about the strawberries in your smoothie, the avocados on your toast, or the tomatoes in your salad. What would happen if those suddenly disappeared or doubled in price? Would we be prepared to change the way we eat, or could we even afford to? That's a question worth asking. But Mexico's importance doesn't stop with what we buy. It's also about how things get built. Many American industries, especially automotive manufacturing, rely heavily on Mexico for affordable, skilled labor. These cross-border collaborations keep factories alive and jobs intact. If that labor force were suddenly cut off, entire sectors would be thrown into disarray. Workers here in the US would be affected too, not just abroad. Companies would struggle to keep up with production, and thousands of jobs could vanish overnight. And then there's something we don't talk about enough: security. The US and Mexico work closely on border control, drug enforcement, and intelligence sharing. This isn't just paperwork and handshakes, it's boots on the ground, cooperation that stops illegal trafficking and keeps communities safer on both sides. If that partnership were to collapse, we wouldn't just be talking about economic trouble. We'd be dealing with real, immediate threats: rising crime, increased smuggling, and less coordination in the fight against powerful drug cartels. So ask yourself, how much of your daily life, your peace of mind, and even your safety depends on a neighbor most of us rarely think twice about? As the saying goes, when the well's dry, we know the worth of water. Right now, Mexico is one of those wells. It provides the US with trade, food, labor, and protection. Things we tend to take for granted until they're gone. The lesson here is clear. Strong partnerships are not about convenience. They are about mutual survival, shared growth, and respect. In a world that's constantly changing, the connections we maintain are the roots that hold everything else in place. So, the next time we talk about national strength, let's not just talk about military might or GDP. Let's talk about neighbors allies, and the unseen threads that keep us strong. What do you think life would look like without them? Number 9. Canada. Let's talk about something that might surprise you, something we rarely stop to think about, yet it plays a critical role in your everyday life. From the moment you fill up your gas tank to the food on your table, the gadgets you use, and even the jobs that keep communities alive. Have you ever asked yourself, what would really happen if Canada, yes, peaceful, dependable Canada, suddenly couldn't support the US the way it does now? It's easy to overlook because Canada is often seen as the quiet neighbor to the north. But in reality, it's one of the pillars holding up the American economy. Canada supplies over 60% of America's crude oil imports. That's not just a number, it's the foundation of energy security for millions of homes, industries, and transportation systems across the US. If that supply were disrupted, we wouldn't just be talking about a slight rise in prices. We'd be talking about a domino effect that could bring entire sectors to their knees. Energy bills would soar, production costs would spike, and millions could feel the pinch, from the smallest households to the biggest corporations. You might wonder, why does the US rely so heavily on just one country? Isn't that risky? And the honest answer is, yes, it absolutely is. But energy is just the beginning of the story. Canada is also America's closest trading partner, tied into its economy like two strands of the same rope. Think about agriculture, grains, livestock, fresh produce, or the automotive industry, where parts for cars cross the US-Canada border multiple times before the final product is made. Tech companies in Silicon Valley rely on Canadian software talent, minerals, and even clean energy. So when one nation falters, the other feels the tremor immediately. This interdependence is deeper than most people realize. It's not just about trade, it's about shared logistics, shared investments, and even shared values that make these systems function smoothly. If Canada were to fall into political instability, economic downturn, or natural disaster, how do you think that would ripple across the US? Would your city be ready? Would your job be safe? These aren't far-off scenarios anymore. 2025 is around the corner, and the global landscape is changing fast. What once felt secure may no longer be. But here's where it gets even more personal. If you've ever taken for granted how easily we access fuel, food, or manufactured goods, now is the time to rethink that comfort. Canada isn't just a backup supplier, it's the main line. And the US, despite its size and power, is more fragile than it seems when that connection is put at risk. Have you noticed how inflation or global tensions can change prices almost overnight? That's a sign of how interconnected and delicate this balance really is. I believe this is a wake-up call, not just for policymakers, but for every one of us who thinks our modern life is unshakable. So let me ask you, what would you do if suddenly energy bills tripled, groceries became scarce, or your job depended on a part stuck at a closed border? These aren't just economic questions. They're questions about resilience, awareness, and how prepared we are for a world that's no longer as stable as it once was. So, as we continue exploring the global web that supports the US, remember, Canada isn't just a friendly neighbor, it's one of the quiet giants holding up America's everyday reality. The next time you hear about changes in Canadian politics or energy markets, don't shrug it off. Ask yourself what it means for you, your family, and your future. And if this made you think a little differently today, stay with us. We've got more eye-opening truths coming your way. Number 10. China. Let's take a serious moment to reflect on just how deeply tied our daily lives are to a nation we often talk about politically but rarely consider personally. China. Think about the phone in your hand, the laptop on your desk, the shoes you wear, even the light fixtures in your home. Chances are they were made or assembled in China. Now ask yourself this: what would happen if, almost overnight, all trade with China came to a halt? It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. As the world's second largest economy and the largest manufacturer globally, China produces over 28% of the world's goods. The United States, for all its power and innovation, imports roughly $450 billion worth of goods from China every single year. That figure isn't just a number. It's a lifeline that stretches across every American household, big corporation, and small business. If that lifeline were severed, prices would surge, shelves in stores could be left empty, and businesses that rely on Chinese parts and products might be forced to shut down. It's a sobering thought, and one we need to take seriously. But the story goes much deeper than just consumer products. China controls a massive portion of the world's supply of rare earth minerals. Critical ingredients for smartphones, electric vehicles, medical devices, and renewable energy technology. These aren't just conveniences. They're the foundation of our modern lifestyle and the tools of our future. Without access to those resources, entire industries could collapse or become dangerously dependent on less stable sources. Sectors like electronics, clean energy, defense, and even healthcare would face supply chain disasters that could set back progress by years. And we're not just talking about abstract industries. These are the very things that keep your home powered, your phone running, and your car on the road. Now let's be honest. Have we become too comfortable, too dependent, too unaware of how fragile this relationship really is? In today's increasingly tense geopolitical climate, the possibility of strained or broken economic ties is real. Tariffs, political disagreements, sanctions, and military posturing have all threatened the delicate balance between the US and China. And while we often think of these conflicts as issues for politicians or news pundits, the truth is that they impact us directly. When tension rises, it's not just diplomats who feel the heat. It's working families, local businesses, and everyday citizens like you and me who carry the burden. That's why understanding this dependency isn't just a lesson in economics. It's about awareness, resilience, and preparation. As global uncertainty grows, we need to start thinking differently about where our goods come from, how our industries are built, and how we, as individuals and communities, can adapt. So what can you do? First, stay informed. Pay attention to global supply chain shifts and policies affecting trade, because what happens thousands of miles away can echo right into your household. Second, support local manufacturing and diversification efforts when possible. It's a small step, but it helps build a stronger, more independent economy. Third, be mindful of your consumption habits. It's not about fear. It's about awareness and responsibility. Ask yourself, if things really change tomorrow, would I be ready? Would we, as a nation, be able to stand on our own, or have we tied too much of our well-being to a single thread? These are questions worth asking, not just for our economy, but for the kind of future we want to build. As we've seen, the strength of the United States doesn't come from standing alone. It comes from the invisible threads of connection, cooperation, and trust between nations. From technology and medicine to energy and security, these global relationships are the pillars quietly holding up modern American life. Without them, the foundation begins to shake. In an age where everything feels more uncertain, understanding these connections isn't just interesting, it's essential. Because the future of any nation, including the US, depends not just on what it can do alone, but on what it builds together with others. If this video gave you a new perspective or made you think more deeply about the world we share, I invite you to support this journey. Please like this video, share it with someone who might find it meaningful, and subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom for more thoughtful explorations like this. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Until next time, stay mindful, stay curious, and keep walking the path of wisdom.